Blutbart.
Hello and welcome back to another behind the scenes toy photography video. Today I'll show you how to easily make a prison cell. I call this shot Past the Barrier. I'll also show you my editing process. For the second week in a row, I used these skeleton crew action figures from Hasbro's Star Wars The Black Series. Making a jail cell is super simple. All you need is a wire baking rack and something to hold it up with. I chose cinder blocks to hold up my rack because I have a bunch of them, but this could be done with weights, clamps, or any number of other holding devices. With the cinder blocks, I simply stood them up and wedged my baking rack between them. Next, I posed and placed my toys. The baking rack I used has bars that fit perfectly in the hands of 6-inch action figures, so I attached their hands to the bars first and then made sure their feet were balanced afterwards. This allowed me to make a nice sturdy setup where I didn't have to worry about constantly knocking my figures over. After that, I positioned the back wall of my cell, which I made by carving and painting a styrofoam cooler. Lastly, I positioned my backlight and used a couple empty Black Series boxes to block off the light coming in from the sides. Lights out and time to shoot. Here's my starting image. This was one of the easiest edits I've done in a while. All it required was a few basic touch-ups. I started by cropping, rotating, and skewing the image. Despite my best efforts, I often have trouble positioning my camera directly head-on, so sometimes I need to use Photoshop to make my shot symmetrical. After that, I added adjustment layers for levels and color balance. Next, I made a backup of my touch-ups layer and used various tools to edit out the articulation points on my figures. I like to work as non-destructively as possible in Photoshop, so I usually make a new layer for every structural change I want to make to a photo. This makes it a lot easier to go back and make changes to specific parts instead of having to redo my whole edit every time I want to make a change. Following that, I used the dodge and burn tools to further touch up my light levels. I find using the dodge tool at a low exposure on my toys' eyes helps make them look slightly more lifelike. Lastly, I added a vignette to darken up the corners. So once again, here's my starting image. And here's where I ended up. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing and maybe checking me out on Instagram. Thanks, and until next time.